Hey BookTube, it's Meg again. I'm finally doing my April wrap-up, so after this I'll finally be caught up, and so when May finishes I'll be able to actually do an on-time wrap-up. So like always for the wrap-ups, we're going to go from my worst book read for that month to my best book, and we're going to begin and end with the same author, funny enough. So my worst book read for the month of April was Special Deliverance by Clifford D. Simak. This is my first Simak that I've ever read. And I really wasn't impressed. So the other one that I'm going to get to was one that we were going to read for my science fiction book club. And so I was really concerned that I wasn't going to like that one either. But anyway, we'll get to it. So this one's a pretty short read. My copy's dust cover is a little bit torn up and everything, but that's what you get when you buy secondhand at the half price books clearance sales. This follows like kind of a cast of kind of unique characters. The kind of main character that you follow is Lansing. He's like a college professor and he kind of gets sucked into this other world along with these other characters. And so there's like the robot guy, which interestingly enough, he in the book, the way that they describe him upon first meeting him is like they don't initially realize that he's a robot. So I don't think he looks anything like this because that's pretty obvious that that's a robot, an android or whatever. So I think in the book they don't, sorry, in this book Simak doesn't go through like a lot of detail of like what the characters look like. He kind of just gives them like short little like this guy's a priest, this guy's a old war hero or whatever, like a commander of like some like Germanesque army, and then you have like there's a female character that was like a mechanic. Basically it comes from like a mechanical world of like mechanics and like engineers and stuff, and then another female character that's basically if like the philosophers and poets in like ancient Rome was like what took over the world, and like that's how Earth is basically. So they're all from like different Earths, like in like the multiverse kind of, and so the premise is basically that every so often this group of aliens brings random people from all sorts of different worlds, and they kind of like put them through like a trial by fire to see if any of them are good enough to like come out the other end. And I'm not going to go into spoilers for like why or anything like that, or who makes it, but it was okay. It was probably going to be a 4-star read, but then the ending just kind of happens, and the ending hinged on a vast misunderstanding of what evolution is. And evolution is like one of my favorite things about science. So I was a bit underwhelmed by that. So it dropped down to only a 3-star. So not a terrible book, but probably not the best book for me to have started reading an author on. So, the next book was also a 3-star. And again, this one probably would have been a little higher for different reasons, but it was a Canticle for Leibowitz. I'm really not sure how you pronounce the name, by Walter M. Miller Jr. For as small as this is a very like sprawling kind of science fiction story. It goes over several centuries of the human race after like nuclear war has kind of decimated the whole planet. And the like Catholic Church is kind of the like one of the surviving entities, and they are kind of what's keeping the knowledge of the human race going, like by how like people would copy like old priests and stuff like that, would copy like the Bible and other documents and everything. They're doing that after the nuclear war has happened, and everyone else is kind of just reduced to roving bandits of cannibals. And so I love post-apocalyptic, I can't talk today. I love post-apocalyptic like stories. Like the Mad Max movies are one of my favorite. Fallout is my favorite video game. So this was like right up my alley. But I'm also an atheist, and so a lot of the like religious overtones of this were kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But also, Miller does such a good job of like making the priests very sympathetic characters, and so I was still rooting for them, even at times when they were going against like what like a secular scientist was like saying and stuff. I was kind of like, no, I'm still kind of siding with them. But there's a part in this that is very heavy-handed on something that is like relevant to today's world, and especially like me being a woman. There's a part where a character is arguing with a mother on going into basically what is like a euthanization camp. There's like no hope for her and her child, and instead of being understanding of it being her choice, the priest just like judges her for it and tells her like, no, don't do, like tells her what to do like with her own body. And so I don't know, it was very relevant to like what's going on today in America and everything. And so that it really rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't until after I read the book that I found out that this was actually written by Miller shortly before his own suicide. And so that part became a little bit more relevant to me. And I understood a bit more why he had the character speaking so much against suicide or against like a euthanasia kind of thing. It seemed more like then he was probably arguing with himself, which I found very sad. But the book arguably ends on either a negative or positive note, kind of depending on, I guess, your interpretation of it. I interpreted it as a positive, that there was still two different avenues of hope for humanity by the end of the story. I'm trying not to give spoilers away again. But I know a lot of other people read it and come away of like, humanity can do nothing other than just spiral around the toilet bowl, and we're all just headed for destruction and death, and there's no hope for us. But I did not get that from this story. There are like quite a few parts where I laughed. So there's a good bit of humor in there, dark humor, but good humor. And unless you know Latin, there are a lot of parts that you're just going to be skimming past. There are like full-on conversations. I don't know if I can find them real quick. I should have gone ahead and like, I mean, here's just a little piece of one. I don't know what that says. And I could have, if it was one or two things, I could have Googled it or something. But I mean, there were I really wish I could find one real quick for you. Like paragraphs sometimes of like prayers or something like that. I'm not Catholic. I never went to school to learn Latin. I took German in high school, and I know how to count basically, and I can sort of translate some things that are said in World War II movies, and that's about it. But it was interesting. It was a good twist to a science fiction novel. Like, you don't see that especially in science fiction novels that have people speaking in all sorts of different languages, but everything's written in, like, for me, English or whatever. But you know that the aliens aren't speaking English. And usually that's just kind of like understood and glossed over. But in this, like unless you know Latin, there's a lot of times and he gives you some context clues, but then there's other times where you're like, okay, I'm just not going to know what that paragraph or that sentence says or is or has anything to do with. So I don't know. So that was another reason that I didn't give it like 4 stars or anything. So it only got 3 stars. So So yeah, I can see why it's considered a classic of science fiction. And definitely, like, if you're looking for some sort of like post-apocalyptic story that isn't really like action filled, like there's just a lot of talking, a lot of philosophical discussions, this would be a good book for you. But if you're looking for like the action of like Mad Max or Fallout, this is not the book for you. So again, not a bad book. I really feel for Miller, especially with like after I read it and rated it, that's when I found out about his suicide after his wife died. And that, again, that kind of hit home more of like maybe why the voice came across the way it did sometimes in the novel. So my next read was a 4-star read, and that is The Bridges of Madison County by Robert James Waller. I had no idea what this was going into it. I haven't seen the movie yet, even though I'm a huge Clint Eastwood fan. And Meryl Streep, I somehow have not seen this film, which it's on my to-watch list, but I didn't really know what to expect. Someone told me that it was a romance, and so I was like, okay, cool. And it is. It's a unique romance. I've never read a romance hinged on the affair being like the romance part. So usually a romance book that I've read, like there's an affair, that person leaves that person, and then that person goes and has a romance with someone else. So I'm like very against cheating and affairs and stuff, so I was shocked at how much I actually enjoyed this book, because I was able to take that, separate part, that away, and just enjoy it for the like lovely little moments between the two characters. And it's like a very bittersweet ending. I'm not gonna give any, again, spoilers. It doesn't end happily, but it also doesn't end really sad. It kind of just gives you hope that if you're meant to find love with someone, you will. And sometimes, I'm not advocating for cheating or having affairs, sometimes you have to give love a chance when everything else in you is telling you not to. Again, still not advocating for people to cheat on their spouses or anything like that, but yeah, it was a sweet little book. There are some moments where the author gets a little bit repetitive with like some of his metaphors about the characters. He refers to Robert as like a leopard or a comet like one too many times, but the two characters are very like, what's the word? I want to say poetic, but they're very like, yeah, kind of poetic people. And so those metaphors and analogies seemed to kind of fit, even if they were kind of overused. So I don't know, take with that what you will. So my first 5-star read, but not the best book that I read in April, is Blood of the Fold by Terry Goodkind. I always feel so like guilty telling people how much I love these books, because I know Terry Goodkind is not held aloft in the fantasy community, and for good reason, but I can't help but love these books. They're like junk food to me. Like Wheel of Time is a 4-course meal, and you have the best dessert afterwards. It's the perfect, everything. Mwah, chef's kiss. And then this is Taco Bell when you're driving home from a concert late at night. I mean, I don't know, that's the best like analogy. They're still very good, just different kinds of good. But so this is the 3rd book in the Sword of Truth series. I swear, I just cannot talk today. It's ridiculous. So this one is, it follows a little bit more of like the, some of the side characters. Richard is trying to deal with like the aftermath of claiming all of the surrounding kingdoms to be under the Daharan rule, as Lord Raw. So he's kind of dealing with that. And then Kaylin is over kind of on the other side. At first, she's doing her own thing, and then unfortunately she gets kidnapped and has to find a way. She gets dragged over to like the sorceresses that collared Rawl in the second book before this. He gets taken to where they are and kind of used as like bait, I guess. So you find out kind of about this like other existential threat of another like kingdom, like the emperor basically is coming across the old world and wants to go into the new world because Richard brought down the boundary between the old world and the new world. This is how I feel when I try to explain Wheel of Time to people. It's just too much to do in a wrap-up video. It needs like its own whole entire so a lot of action scenes, which was fun, and Richard being Richard, where like he's kind of a Gary Stu, and he's kind of got like the Deus Ex Machina kind of like superpowers, and I don't know why it doesn't annoy me and make me want to quit these books. I couldn't tell you what it is about these or about Richard or about Good Kinds writing that actually makes me enjoy it. Like I said, it's Taco Bell late at night. I mean, it's just good stuff. So I don't know. Shoot me. I don't care. There's a lot of fantasy art fans out there that it's kind of there's not really a gray area with Good Kind. You either like love him or you hate him. So I can see it from both ways, but unfortunately I fall into the love camp so far. We're only 3 books in. There are plenty more. He could mess everything up and I could decide to hate him. But so the best book, also a 5-star read that I read April, was Way Station by Clifford D. Simak. It was amazing. Compared to like the first Simak that I read at the beginning of the month, it was completely night and day. This one was almost like, you know how there's like cozy mysteries? I would kind of like explain Way Station as like a cozy sci-fi. It's got like a teeny little bit of like action in it, but pretty much all of the things that happen here on Earth, and they happen in like just this little way station. Basically Enoch is a very old he survived. He was in the Civil War, and an alien comes down and is basically like, hey, I have a job for you. And that job is that he will be the keeper of a way station. And the way station, it's W-A-Y. I'll show the cover up here. I'm sure I already did. It's kind of like a stop-in between a jump from like one place, one way station on a different planet to another to travel through the galaxy. So Enoch meets all sorts of different life forms from different planets. Some he can communicate better with than others. And he's, been around for hundreds of years, dealing with being the keeper of the way station. He kind of gets himself into some trouble. And both with the people here on Earth, but then also with the aliens that are passing through. Like there's like kind of like how Star Trek has like the Federation, and that's like the conglomerate of all the different alien races joined it together. They kind of have that, through the galaxy for these different aliens. And so that entity has kind of, basically, Enoch has done a no-no. Well, it's more that Enoch didn't really do the no-no, but because Enoch is their only like contact with Earth, because no one else on Earth knows that this is happening or anything like that. It's all in secret. Enoch is kind of the one that gets blamed for like what's happening. So yeah, Enoch unfortunately ends up kind of in like a bit of hot water because of some decisions that other people on Earth made. And so it takes him and like kind of his only other friend, Lucy, who's this mute young lady that isn't supposed to know about any of this, but things happen. And so the ending is another one of those kind of like bittersweet. It's ambiguous. You kind of get to decide like whether, I guess what kind of happily ever after Enoch might get to live, I guess. But yeah, it was a very fun read. I adore Enoch. He's like a really, really good character. You definitely sympathize with him and like resonate with who he is and how he views the world. And he's just really trying to do the best he can, both for humanity, but also for all the galactic visitors that he's had and is hoping to have. And he does kind of get torn between the two of like, he's so removed from planet Earth at this point, even though he still lives on Earth. He doesn't go out to really like talk to really anyone. No one knows about what he's doing inside. And so it's very lonely. And so he kind of has to make a decision. Do his loyalties lie with humanity, who he almost doesn't have any contact with and who for all intents and purposes don't care what he's doing, or does he have loyalty to the aliens? And the decision that he is faced with is a very big one. It's a lot to be put on just one person's shoulders. But it's a good question of like, for the reader to put themselves in, what would I decide? And it raises the question, if you can see something terrible coming, do you have the right to do what could be another evil to avert what you view as a greater evil? If that makes sense, without spoiling too much. So yeah, so really, really good book. It's another one of those like library picks that I'll definitely end up buying because I loved it that much that I need it in my own collection. So yeah, that was April. I'm very excited that now I am totally caught up. So now what I'm currently reading in May will be the next thing that I talk about, which so far I think I've only finished 2. I'm in the middle of Snow Crash. No, I'm like 60% of the way through a Snow Crash. Yeah, so it'll be another, compared to this, April was like 5 books, and it's looking like May is probably only going to be 3 books. Yeah, so okay. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble again. Have a good one.